We're here because center-right voters, center-right leaders are the key to saving American democracy.
I'd like to feel like there's some movement towards creating a better political environment in the country where people aren't motivated by, malice and rumors.
That's just a few of the attendees at the recent Principles First Summit held in Washington, D.C.
I think that's the key thing, to have a value that you will vote against your party for, even if sometimes, because that's really rare today.
I had been questioning where my political ideologies sat, even when I was interning on the Hill for a Republican.
This is The Purple Principle, a podcast about the perils of polarization. I'm Robert Pease, and in recent episodes, you've heard conversations with some of the featured speakers at this event, Charlie Sykes, Asa Hutchinson, Michael Steele. But let's move away from the podium and down into the grassroots with reporting from producer Alex Carreau this episode on this evolving event.
Yeah, hi Rob. I am very excited to be here reporting on this. As you know, I'm a native of Oregon and living in Nevada. So you could say I'm from 1.5 purple states. And so I have a lot of interest in what these attendees have to say because for the most part, these are traditional conservatives who are no longer at home within the Republican Party.
The politically homeless, there's a lot of Americans feeling that way. So tell us what you learned, Alex, from 2 days of interviewing at the Principles First Summit.
So I flew out to DC, and this was my first time attending, and I was not quite sure what to expect, but I did like listening to the panel with Alyssa Farah-Griffin, Cassidy Hutchinson, and Sarah Matthews, all women who served and barely survived that first Trump term.
We're going to follow, and it was like the three of us and no one else. Why do you think more people haven't come forward?
I think that, sadly, people are more concerned with their own positions of power than they are with doing what's right for the country.
That was brilliant. And took the words out of my mouth. I do want to touch on one thing Alyssa said.
But the attendees at this event, they're also working on really important and cool efforts. I was set up right outside of the main hall with my microphone, and one person who stopped to talk with me was Jeff Mayhew. I'm so
to be honest with you.
It's a lot. We've been talking to people, for kind of 2 days straight.
Yeah.
So what is your name?
Jeff Mayhew.
And how have you been enjoying this conference, and what brings you here?
So I come here just to meet other people that are interested in, debating, finding solutions.
Jeff Mayhew, he's in his late 30s, reddish brown hair, and wearing a suit jacket. It was late in the afternoon, and while Jeff was tired, he was really energized by the work of his organization, No Cap Fund.
Our focus is to expand the House of Representatives. It's been capped since 1929. We feel a small legislative body is not good for a, government of the people.
Jeff sees his organization as being able to reach across party lines.
There are MAGA fans and there are progressive Democrats, and yes, they have different viewpoints, but if you sit them down in a room and you have a conversation with them about something that's not the DC establishment topic, specifically representation, you can bring those two groups together.
And on that wavelength, we also ended up talking about open primaries and ranked choice voting.
Open primaries is an interesting concept. I do think it's kind of restrictive to say you have to be a Democrat or a Republican to vote in a primary.
Jeff thinks there's a better solution.
But at the same time, there is something to the idea of a party controlling its own mechanisms for power. Now, what I think would be a better solution to that problem is a primary system that guarantees extra parties on the ballot.
That's interesting, Alex, but what exactly does Jeff mean by that?
I think in line with a lot of folks I talked with at this event, and remember, these are kind of more traditional, or if you want, moderate Republicans, no longer at home in their party, Jeff really wants to see a system where third-party candidates, they have a better chance of participating.
People want options. They feel like they're being forced to vote for the lesser of two evils too often. And there's so many people out there, in all seriousness, that are more qualified than the people we have in office. And they can't get to office because they don't like the corruption of the party system.
Jeff felt like there's a real lack of clarity in politics for just regular people.
Like, as an average citizen, most people have no idea when the primaries are. They have no idea when the voting locations are. Think of all the millions and millions of dollars that are spent on ads for congressional candidates where they're pointing the finger at the other guy, but they could simply be putting out a commercial that tells the people of their district where to vote.
What a great concept, explaining to voters how the system works.
And Jeff even had a few observations on the Principles First Summit.
At this event, the thing that gets a little under my skin is everybody saying save democracy, okay? What is democracy and where is our democracy held? In our republic, it's in the House of Representatives. Our republic divides, separates, and balances power. Our power is invested into representation to go to what I call the sphere of power, Washington, D.C., and speak for us. If those people aren't speaking for us, if they're not meeting with us in our communities, then they're not actually representing us.
Yeah, so Alex, great meeting Jeff there, some really interesting ideas. But I'm wondering, was there anyone at the summit you met who revealed their political angst, meaning the struggle of their more traditional conservatism with the new MAGA reality of the GOP?
Yeah, I spoke with Blair Egan. She's wearing a pantsuit, glasses, and a look of determination. A more moderate Republican herself, but also a research specialist on authoritarianism.
And from 2019 to when I started grad school in the January 2020, I saw, even between that short period of time, a significant increase in radicalization within what is now unfortunately, the mainstream of the Republican Party.
Let's remember, we are at a conference held as an alternative to CPAC, so we're not really talking Republican base.
We continue to see vertical growth amongst Republican voters rather than horizontal. They're not reaching out to a wider base. They are sticking with people who have the same type of ideologies, which is why we're seeing an increase in the number of people who have very strong opinions on racial demographics, cultural demographics. That's why we're seeing a culture war right now.
And Blair is pretty discouraged by these trends.
But because of this cult of personality that's forming around figures like Donald Trump, or cults of personality forming behind lesser known figures on the left, it's only proving to increase this polarization.
In fact, she has an entirely different way of referring to the MAGA base of the Republican Party.
Nationalist conservatism is more of an accurate categorization for them. And that is an authoritarian form of conservatism that does not align with liberal democratic principles like the ones that Principles First supports, or the liberal democratic principles that define Western democracy.
So, Alex, we know there are a lot of kind of center-right voters at this conference. Traditional conservatives like Blair might be questioning their political identities. But did you speak with anyone a little more on the left side of things?
Not a lot of Democrats at this event, but possibly more than in years past. And I did speak to one Democrat, Liam Kerr, who was wearing a blue suit, made very good eye contact, and said that center-right voters may decide the 2024 elections.
Yeah, well, that really echoes what Charlie Sykes said in our interview at this event.
Right now, it is the center-right voter it remains conservative, is not enamored of the Democratic Party, does not want to vote for Joe Biden, but needs to be given the permission structure to say, but that doesn't mean you have to vote for Donald Trump again. You don't need to go along with this.
But Charlie Sykes emphasizes how difficult it is for these voters to magically change their identities, whereas Liam borrowed a very different type of label.
As Pete Buttigieg would say, future former Republicans.
I get it. So Liam's working the crowd. He'll probably want to talk to Blair.
Well, Liam is the founder of the nonprofit organization Welcome PAC, which is a Democratic PAC. So, yes, he was at this conference to connect with persuadable voters.
Leadership is important. And when we look around our party, there are younger, energized leaders who have won over Trump voters, have won Trump districts. Marie Gluesenkamp Perez in Washington, Jared Golden in Maine.
And for Liam, polarization within both parties is a factor.
To be sure, there is an element of danger of extremism and of polarization within the Democratic Party.
Liam sees it as his job to also talk to these more far-left progressive Democrats.
We just haven't done enough of a job as moderates of reaching out and bringing people in, even within our own party, to see that light.
For Liam, there is a solution to intra-party polarization.
We think under today's rules, there is a lot more we can do to depolarize. And so we seek to identify depolarizers, those people, those leaders that can reach out and bring people in. And they're not just doing it in a way that's, getting a lot of online traction. They're doing it in a way where regular, everyday people, maybe not the most online people, but of all generations, can look to and say, that's a future I want. That's healthier for my family, for my community.
You're listening to The Purple Principle with some grassroots highlights from the Principles First Summit in Washington, D.C., a meeting of traditional conservatives alarmed by the populist turn of the GOP. I'm here with reporter Alex Carreau, who talked with dozens of these attendees.
Rob, my interviews at the Principles First Summit really showcase not just red versus blue polarization, but the intra-party polarization that has been forming within the Republican Party. Principles First founder Heath Mayo spoke to this new dividing line.
And it's a choice that we'll make this year, not between Republicans and Democrats, but between conserving our liberal tradition and rejecting it. Our speakers will celebrate the spirit of 1776 instead of January 6.
And Heath Mayo, he's speaking there of philosophical liberalism, meaning freedom of speech, assembly, free press, and of course free elections that are at the heart of our republic. Speaking of elections, Alex, we did hear a lot of speakers at this event talk about the flaws of our election system, especially party-run primaries that had just renominated two not very popular candidates in Biden and Trump. So did you talk with anyone there about election reform?
I did, and in fact, I ran into the Virginia-based election reform leader, Mike Cantwell.
I've been involved in the democracy reform movement for a long time.
Among Mike's many roles, he's a leader in the organization Veterans for All Voters, a group which we highlighted on the Purple Principle earlier this season. In all the hustle and bustle of the conference, I was lucky enough to sneak away to a quiet room to talk to Mike.
I'm currently the Virginia state lead for Veterans for All Voters. And I'm also probably a homeless political person, so I've voted for Democrats and Republicans in the past, and I really feel like I'm kind of a centrist. So this Principles First Summit really speaks to me.
Like many other veterans, Mike, he's mission-oriented.
One of the sad state of affairs we have in especially the U.S. Congress is that a problem that is unresolved is more valuable than a problem that's solved. Whereas in the veterans' DNA, it's all about how do we solve a problem? How do we get something done for the American people, because they're all about service. So that's one of the reasons that veterans make great leaders in this political reform movement.
Mike is really proud of the election reform efforts he's been working on in Arlington County, Virginia.
I've been part of the ranked choice voting reform initiative for many, many years now, and I've been leading the effort first with Fair Vote Virginia as the vice president, and I spent a lot of my volunteer hours lobbying state delegates and state senators down at Richmond, but then also in Arlington, Virginia, where I live. And it really is somewhat intoxicating to know that you can go right to your state delegate and actually change their mind on some votes.
That's very cool. And it is right up our alley this season, since we're covering election reform in multiple states.
And ranked choice voting may pass for the first time in my state of Nevada. But in Virginia, where Mike lives, they're working to retain the right for cities and towns to hold ranked choice elections.
This year we had several ranked choice voting ban bills that we were able to get defeated in subcommittees in the House of Delegates. In Arlington, as soon as Arlington received the power to do the ranked choice voting local option, I've been involved in the advocacy efforts to get that implemented.
So Arlington became the first county in Virginia to permanently include ranked choice voting in public elections back when it was unanimously passed in December of 2023. And Mike has seen the human benefits of having things like nonpartisan primaries during his time running for office.
Running as an independent, I talk to everybody. So when I'm knocking on doors in Arlington, I just go door to door to door. I don't have a list to tell me who's a Republican or who's a Democrat. It's very refreshing, and you hear everybody's stories and what they expect from their local government.
And the fact that Mike talks to and represents the actual people of his district seems to be something that most of the people I talk to at Principles First were searching for.
If those people aren't speaking for us, if they're not meeting with us in our communities, then they're not actually representing us.
Because it's the local level stuff that, feeds all the way to the top.
I'm in this work because I think there's the potential for people to come together.
It is actually just everyday people who come together. And so much of the people who win the middle over and depolarize the country. And I think if you get a lot of those people in a room, really special things can happen.
And it was interesting to be in that conference room at the Principles First Summit and meet this different side of the Republican Party, some more moderate and some more traditional, but all pro-democracy, and to get beyond the very simplistic red versus blue labels. And it was great to learn about different initiatives to give non-establishment candidates more of a chance.
Absolutely. It is great to hear these more nuanced perspectives as we rev up for a really contentious election year, not just in the presidential race, but many down-ballot races as well. Next up on the Purple Principle, discussion of another major factor in our polarization, and that is gerrymandering. Drawing of electoral districts for partisan gain. It's been a national pastime since before we were a nation. And as we approach the 2024 election, recent and ongoing judicial verdicts on gerrymandering in states like New York, North Carolina, Wisconsin, they could determine the balance of power in the U.S. House and even the White House.
For some reason, people are super interested in this year's presidential race. I can't quite figure it out. Anyway, but they are. Okay, there it is. The presidential race might get thrown into the House of Representatives. If there's some crazy thing that happens, it goes there. And in the House of Representatives, every state gets one vote.
Dr. Sam Wong of the Princeton Gerrymandering Project, he's one of the most respected, widely cited sources of analysis on gerrymandering. We'll also hear from Paul Smith, Senior Vice President at Campaign Legal Center. He's argued against some of the nation's most partisan gerrymanders in state Supreme Courts and the U.S. Supreme Court.
And certainly when I've done cases in the past involving congressional delegations, a piece of it is the one that Sam mentioned, which is who's going to control the delegation for purposes of this particularly unusual House resolution of presidential elections.
Such an important topic, but a challenging one. So we'll be breaking gerrymandering down for you on that episode. We hope you'll tune in, share it with others, leave us a review on your favorite podcast app, and check out our YouTube content for video highlights from all our featured guests. The Purple Principle is very much a collaborative effort. Senior audio engineer, Kevin A. Klein, associate producer, Alex Carreau, research and fact-checking, Sarah Kim, digital strategy and ops from Trevor Profit, video production from Mary Claire Kobler. Purple Principle is a Fluent Knowledge production. Original music by Ryan Adair Rooney.